Hey, Ryan Williamson here with Sourwood Farm, and today I have traded out my bee veil for this wonderful get-up here, and yeah, that is because we are dealing with food. It's the tail end of June, and I am pulling honey to extract and bottle for sale. So I wanted to just do a quick little overview of my basic methods of extracting honey and my workflow layout, a few things that I found useful. So first off, I'm now experimenting with the concept of wheels. They've been absolutely fantastic for moving heavy things. So I bring honey in the door over there, and I'm able to park my van right outside the door, and I can load up the supers onto these dollies. Got kind of a rim here with a air vent, which we'll talk about in a little bit, and of course wheels, so I can just roll the whole stack. And that gets rolled into this nice new tent. In the past, I've done a dehydrator table, warming table, and this year I'm experimenting with this, and I really, really like it. So we've got we're 4 foot by 6 foot by 8 foot tall, and it's got a zipper. I really like that idea. Put some magnets down here to help close. And inside, we've got a heat source, which is our dehumidifier, also, of course, drying the air. And that is controlled by a temperature controller. That's super key because if this dehumidifier went all the time, it would overheat this little room. Temperature controller is set to 100 degrees. Once I get to 100 degrees, it's going to kick that thing off and let it cool down a little bit. And I generally am running about 25% humidity in here, and the honey then is staying very warm. I've got ceiling fans though, and these box fans are blowing hot air, dry air down through the supers, and any frames that are uncapped, that comb is going to get dried out, any nectar that could be potentially too high in moisture. So at the bottom of the stacks, of course, we've got this air slot so that hot dry air can come out the bottom, and it's working out really well. I'm really liking the convenience of being able to roll full stacks of supers, and then basically from there I'm going to move it over to uncapping and extracting. So let me put on this little gizmo here around my neck, which will allow me to work with my hands and hopefully kind of walk through the manual aspects of uncapping and all. So get this clipped in. There we go. And got to do the angle a little better than that. There we go. All right. So use a hive tool to kind of break the super, the propolis cap, I should say. And I'm going to walk this out and set it on. I've got a drip tray here with a very important block of wood. This is perfectly sized to match the bottom of these frames, so when I push down, the frames ends come up, and that allows me to pull them out easily. Close up the zipper here, and I've been touching non-food items, so I'm going to come over here to my very newest addition to the shop, which is a hand washing sink. Get my hands good and clean. This took me a little bit of time. It really delayed my extracting to have this sink in here, but it's been really, really nice. I had to run plumbing around a closet and all. But the best part though is the foot controlled water. So when I'm super sticky, I can very easily turn it on and off. It's just been really wonderful. Get my hands dry, and there we go. The other big addition for me this year was also having a commercial sink and countertops. It's been wonderful. Okay, so back to extracting though. So I use a cold knife. I've tried all different methods and just really, really like the efficiency. This is a homemade uncapping tub made from a sink. Wish it was a little deeper. That's my biggest problem. I've got a bar that can move side to side, a little nail for the frame to sit on. So I set that there, and then I can run the knife down. Serrated bread knives, they're all different types, of course. The one that I really like is not here, it's up at the house because we really like it, but it's the original TV knife. And it's just wonderful, it's flexible, it's got the perfect serration for doing honey, and they, of course, don't make that exact one anymore. I was able to find a replica, and they are not the same. It's a stiffer steel, so I had to took my grinder actually and ground it because I really like having this flex, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Really like the nail, so that here you can see I missed these cappings. I can come here and use the tip of my knife. And that allows me to use the same implement. Oh, and look at that. I've got this kind of fork effect. I can use that to pull off the comb. Spin, go to the other side. If I run 9 frames in a super, the comb's really proud, and it's just great to use. It's just so wonderful because the honey is proud and easy to cut off. But then when I'm putting in new frames, that's when I often have the honey is not as proud because you have to do the supers tighter, or I should say frames tighter in the super. So I'm going to come down here, cut that side. I'm trying to do a few just to kind of show some of the knife skills. This is really fat here, so that's going to be really nice. Look at that, beautiful honey. Got some pollen in here. This is probably I'm guessing I was running a single deep and had this super right above the brood nest, and so they stored some pollen, which is too bad. And here we go. This is a good example of a harder frame. See how they haven't finished drawing the foundation up here. That then means that I'm going to bow the knife in so I can get that comb. And see, the freshest comb, it kind of tears a little bit. Wherever it's capped, it's best. And then I'm going to bring my knife at a different angle and try to get up in here and get that uncapped. It's really important to get everything uncapped because then as the extractor's spinning, it doesn't lose its balance. Now I'm going to come down. Oh, this is definitely a much harder frame. So I think it's always important to show the good and the bad of things. All the different hot knives, uncapping planes, forks, the pros and cons. Growing up, we just used a bin of hot water and we just dipped the knife in it and that would cut nicely. But of course that adds moisture, and now I've learned that's, puts the honey at risk of fermentation. In the end, I really, really like the cold knife. And you can just see when you have a really nice frame like this, it's proud, the honey, and it just cuts beautifully. That one stuck a little bit, so I can just take the knife and slide it down. See here, I'm getting the excess comb off the top and the bottom. And cut down here. Oh, that's beautiful. So now we're going to take these frames and load them into the extractor. And that's another art form because I run all different types of comb and then I pay for it at this time of year. So if I have frames that have foundation of wax or foundation of plastic, they actually weigh differently as the honey gets spun out, and then that can lead to the extractor getting unbalanced. So I have to make sure I'm balancing out the wax and the plastic foundation so that it then is even. And then that's going to spin really fast. Turn on the motor. This extractor is about as old as me. I want to turn that off though so it's not too loud for us. All right, now I got super sticky hands, so back to the hand washing sink we go. And then we can talk about the rest of the honey. So get that honey off. So running the extractor with the gate closed, which is kind of opposite of what they tell you in the instructions. The fear if you over extract and you get the honey level up to where the frames are, it would slow and bog down the motor and burn that out. So the manufacturers, of course, don't want to have a burned out motor. I like it because I can control the amount of honey that's coming out so that these filters don't overflow. I like to run my system just one filtration done. So it's 200 micron filter with 100-degree honey, it flows pretty darn good. I get about 2 buckets worth, maybe 3 before the filters get a little too clogged. I use a rim, which is an old bucket lid that's lifting up that filter out of the plane of the bucket. So you can see here, honey's down below, dripping through, but I can fill the bucket all the way up. Of course, that then means that we're sealed to keep things like flies or bees or dust from getting into our filtered honey, but also means I can't see the level. So that's where this light comes in. And it really, really like having the light. That allows me to see, here we have a level. This is a really good, thick, opaque bucket, so it's harder to see that level. Over here, wow, way easier to see with these slightly more clear buckets. This filter was getting a little clogged up, so I switched over to another. Another big efficiency addition with wheels this year is I've got these little dollies for like 15 bucks and I can roll buckets side to side. So let's say this one here, I'm pretty full, but I want to, obviously this bucket, maybe one more filter after this, but I want to shut that off, let it drip a tiny bit. And then this is where the wheels are so nice. I can just wheel that out of the way, quickly wheel that in and start filling the next one. Let that gate go a little too far. So I'm going to close that up though so we can keep going through the process. Got buckets that have been washed and they're drying upside down so dust doesn't accumulate. Lids over here, refractometers for measuring. Got a chunk comb that I'm about to add honey from my bottling tank, and blue tape, which I love blue tape. It's all throughout my operation, but that allows me to mark my buckets, label them, and date, where it came from, notes on. Then let's just pretend we just spun this. I'm going to bring the frames wet comb, but of course all the honey's out, and put them in another stack on a dolly to then haul out to the bee yard. My favorite though is the handheld hand cart, because I can just roll that straight down to the bees. Before we go down to the bees though, I wanted to go over a little bit of some of the other aspects. Of course, we have all these cappings here, and they're draining through the filters, but it takes a while to drain. And I have the solar wax melter to deal with the cappings later, but I want to get the most honey possible out. So, and of course, if we have like a day like today that's been mostly cloudy, the solar wax melter would be no good. So I've got this other tank that is just letting the comb sit and drain more. To help it drain though, I've got a heater going. So there's heat pads underneath, keeping about 100, 105 degrees in there. And it's insulated. Underneath here you can see we got another, what do you know, more wheels. A dolly with a bucket, and it is slowly dripping. I love that, getting as much honey as possible out of that wax. So, because it's been cloudy all day, I still have my solar wax melter tray in here, but the cappings go into this, go out to the solar wax melter that now I wish I had loaded it up. And that runs the cappings through, and I get these gorgeous blocks of wax out of the solar wax melter. They still need to get processed more for candles, but hey, that's not too bad for first run. And the slum gum, this is kind of like, I have a lot of supers with brood, I should say drone size comb, and the queens have laid in them over the years. So I get some of this kind of darker slum gum that comes from that, and I can just pop that out because I've got a silicone mat in the solar wax melter, and that really is just awesome. It keeps it from sticking. Slum gum stuck to the metal is just nearly impossible. So I can clean this out before I fill it up with the next batch of cappings. Then, occasionally we do spill. So I've got this is my spilled honey that I've scraped off the floors. Not proud of that, but hey, it happens. And over here, this is super important, I have a bucket of water with a rag, warm water. So if I have a drip or something, I can quickly wipe that off the floor and then not track it around with my shoes. And over here, we have a mop bucket for doing more mopping. So hey, and then this is also really helpful. I've got a little vacuum, a handheld vacuum, slightly altered, but it allows me to pick up the few bees that come in. They always go to this window, and so I can vacuum up the bees. It doesn't hurt them. They're just cruising around in there now, and I can take them outside and let them go. Let's go out. So let's just pretend we've brought our wet supers out here. And used to, a long time ago, I would just make huge piles of the wet supers and let the bees drop them out. It's totally fun to watch the chaos, but my comb really suffered. So switched over to typically in the evening, late at night, right before dusk, I'll bring out a whole stacks of wet supers and stack them on top of hives. Definitely learned some ins and outs of that. It seems like a simple technique, but it's in some ways not. The idea is basically we want the bees in the colony below to clean out these supers, and they make great towers for bragging pictures. Hey, look how big my hives are, and I'm just full of hot air. But so all those upper supers are wet comb that the bees are cleaning out. What I've learned though is if I have a colony coming out of the nectar flow with a really good stores for going through the summer dearth and to get ready for winter, it doesn't work. And the reason is they don't have room to store the honey from the wet supers up above. So here, for this colony here, we've got a single deep down at the bottom. That's at the brood. Then I've got a queen excluder, and then I've got a full deep of honey. I put a wet super on the purple box, and that's key. That's the open comb for them then to feel like, hey, we can bring the honey down. The darker purple is a homemade inner cover, and then above it is all the wet supers. A little bit of blue tape to cover up gaps so robber bees can't get in. And the basic concept is the bees view that area above the inner cover as kind of their home, but not really. So they want to bring that nectar down, or honey, down near their brood nest to be ready for winter. They want it down there. But if there's no room, then they're going to keep it up above. Because they kind of still view it as part of their colony, they don't tear up the comb. They actually will repair it. It's really nice. It ends up being really nice looking comb for storage. After, these have been on a little too long, over a week, but after a few days, often they clean it out. Typically by 7 days, it's really nice and polished out. And then I'm going to, basically middle of the day, take a leaf blower, blow out bees, and then take those supers up to store. I've got a shed. Wow, look how messy my workshop porch is. So I've got a shed way up here, and I'll store maybe about 13 in a stack in the shed. That kind of keeps it out of the bees because they're so hungry in the summer here. And I've tried all different ways of storing comb. Paramoth has been the way I've kind of settled on because it allows me to have really pretty comb that's clean for the next year. So I'll put a paramoth on about once a week, and typically by fall, when we get our first frost, then I can take the lids off those stacks and let them air out the rest of the year. And that, you know, by spring it doesn't smell so bad. I really don't like the smell of paramoth. You need to figure out a better system, maybe refrigeration eventually. But for now, that's working. So, hoping that was useful, entertaining, and yeah, let me know if you have any questions, comments. Love to hear. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye.